Practice and Research 3.1 Transforming Mixed Media. Now, one of the ideas that I'd come up with was to go back to transforming existing samples from Project 2. What this did lead to onto was a new formation of some new materials, such as the spray paint and so forth, but using existing samples and materials from Project 2 started to reveal some new pieces of work. So, as I progressed through other lines of inquiry and research, I wanted to go back to contemporary practice where I'd worked with hair. Now, I've discovered through research that was quite in depth with the project in contemporary practice. I began to look at hair as an identity. So, as part of the introduction to Project 3, I've briefly covered and gone through more in-depth detail on my blog how hair is an identity, and I wanted to incorporate this with the art, textiles and transformation of mixed media, so that there were connections starting to come through, and then obviously lead to new lines of inquiry. So I'd returned back to some old work, which you will see on my blog. I've gone ahead and transformed some of these samples, hair that's been cast in plaster, hair that's been combined with PVA glue to make a fabric. And here we can see that I'd started to spray some hair samples. We can see the silhouetted shapes that the spray painting is leaving. So again, this is incorporating, working with the samples to generate mark making. This was a little bit of a surprise, has changed a little bit of direction in my work, but all in all is making some good results with this new research. It was quite nice actually, which is something that I've never done, is to return to some old samples. I'd produced hair fabric in contemporary practice, so here we can see I'm changing it by spraying it, changing the colour. We can also see as well the mark making that it's leaving behind. It's quite nice as well to have this evidence that and return to the sketchbook and play around with some of the ideas. One thing that I'd discovered was the shapes of the circle, the triangle, were still quite dominant, and elements of the square started to filter through. So this new line of inquiry, I then began to look into the history of the circle, and as I was working through mind maps and pulling out the properties of the triangle, I had started to look at mathematics, Pythagoras and so forth. This gave connotations of abstract mathematics with degrees, angles, square roots when we look at the square, and also as well interesting research from the history of the circle, where we delve into things like the Olympic ring, symbolising harmony and unity, which is quite a logo that we do see. There was quite a lot of background on the history of these shapes, which I do consider that requires further investigation to open up new lines of inquiry. But just at the moment, simple imagery that I can use, things like this, the centre point and the radius and quarters and so forth, the new terminology and new words that I'm also learning within this research. So what I did was just made some simple diagrams so that these acetate pieces look mathematical, and then possibly use them with the idea that I've also been working with as an overlay. this video is kind of coming towards the end of the project, and I don't think I utilised this area of research enough, so I do feel as though I've just kind of slotted it in. But the mind mapping and the sifting through of the information is quite relevant, so this is something that I may come back to for project 4. I think there's a lot of research here that is yet to be investigated, but I will just keep on processing the ideas through.